Welcome back to Kevin Toll Reads. I hope you are doing well. It is time, my friends, for another Let Me Know video. Let Me Know number 26. I enjoy this video series a lot because I get to talk to you all. You know, there's a lot of engagement, and that's what I really, really enjoy. And so today's Let Me Know, the topic of today's Let Me Know is, are there too many BookTube channels? You know, BookTube is bigger than ever, but is that a good thing? Is the space getting crowded, or is there room for everyone? You know, as folks gain popularity on other social media platforms and make the jump to YouTube from Book Talk, Bookstagram, you know, is that a good thing? You know, when you have decent subscriber bases on those social media platforms and they think, well, more's better, let me go to YouTube. Does that distract from the people that are here and with their voices, their perspectives, or does it create new things that are great for everyone? You know, should they stay on the talk? Should they stay on the gram and leave our niche of BookTube alone? Yeah, that's the question. So let's talk a little bit about the pros and the cons. So we're going to start with the pros. Let's talk about the positives first. Why not? So the first one is more is better. More is better. You know, more creators equals more voices, more perspectives, you know, more discussion around marginalized bookish topics, bookish niches like indie and self-pub authors. You know, smaller creators reviewing indie and self-pub books is a good thing because there are some great indie authors. If you haven't seen any of my content from Indie Author August and that reading event, I was blown away by that. So that's definitely where more can be better. A greater sense of community and collaboration is the next pro. You know, from buddy reads to book tags to reading events and readathons, you know, there's a lot that goes on and it's all very good. It's good to get into stuff with a group. One is good, two is great, you know, when it comes to a crowd. And so that's a really good thing. The next pro is more recommendations equals more discoveries. Yes. You know, when viewers no longer see just the bestsellers, just the newest King book, the newest Dan Brown book, the newest John Grisham, the newest, you know, which everyone else is talking about, when they can see books that you don't see out there, they can discover really good things. Let me give you an example. Since I have been on BookTube, it is the sole reason that I took the dive and tried out Westerns. I would have never done that if I wouldn't have been on BookTube. I would have still been reading, you know, thrillers, a lot of what Steve Donahue calls bro books. I would have been reading those. I wouldn't have taken the dive into some of the nonfiction books that I've read and enjoyed. It is because of being on here that I did. And that's a huge thing. And lastly, in terms of pros, it's easy. It's easy to, you know, be on BookTube. It is. And some people say, well, you're crazy. You talk about how hard it is to keep up all the time. It is in that regard, and we're going to talk about some of the cons related to that. But when it comes to doing a channel, you don't need a lot. It's easy to be hired. Anyone can do this if they just have the will to, you know, take a phone, record, and upload it into YouTube. It doesn't take a whole lot. And that's how I started. But there are channels that completely blow up quickly. And it has a lot to do not so much with the flashiness and all of the great lighting and the backdrops and everything. It's more about the authenticity of the person that is speaking. So you don't have to spend tons of money. And that's a pro about BookTube. You can just record and upload and go. And a lot of people find varying degrees of success doing so. So now let's talk about some of the cons related to, well, are there too many BookTube channels? So when it comes to cons, I have 4 here that I want to kind of discuss and throw out there for you all. The first one is it's harder to stand out. It's harder to stand out when there is so many booktubers. You know, there is thousands of folks talking about October wrap-ups. what they're going to be reading in November, what their top 10 fantasy books are, or their top 10 books to do this or do that. Top 10s are a huge hit right now when it comes to BookTube. It is everywhere. And so, when those videos get released, you kind of feel a little bit of FOMO if you're not a creator putting that content out. And as a watcher of BookTube channels like myself and others on here watching this video, you see the same thing over and over again. The algorithm of YouTube, it favors established creators. So the newer voices tend to struggle for visibility when it comes to trying to placate towards those trending videos. And so it becomes harder to stand out. Next, there's repetition of content. There's the same trends, the same popular video titles, the same authors being discussed time and time and time again. It dominates feeds, especially if you're in your own feed, if you're looking at or looking for insight into the most newest book. And the next thing you know, your feed is dominated with channels talking specifically about that book. It seems that it's very formulaic and it can overwhelm you in a sense of, should I get that book? Should I not get that book? Because this channel talked about it and enjoyed it. This channel didn't enjoy it. And so yourself as a viewer wanting to pull the trigger on reading a book or wanting to take the dive and putting a book on your TBR, it can weigh into your decision making a lot. There's burnout and comparison. As a booktuber, that is a constant con when it comes to BookTube. There's obviously pressure to upload often as you try to see when you see what other people are doing. They're doing book hauls, they're doing tags, they're doing all this, and you feel like you have to upload or you're going to be left behind. And so you really need to be aware of that. It can really weigh on you. A tip though would be kind of talk about your own approach. What makes your channel authentic, and stay in that lane without chasing the trends. If you feel comfortable doing book reviews and you like that as the core element of your channel, you should continue to do so. I find myself recently kind of bucking against the trend of just throwing out top 10 videos. Even though I like top videos, I like to discuss my top favorite characters or my top favorite books by this author. I have kind of restrained myself because it's everywhere and I don't want to get lost in kind of that wake that everyone is swimming towards. And so, yeah, you have to show a little bit of restraint. And lastly, the viewers are spread thin. If there's too many BookTube channels, the viewers are absolutely spread thin when it comes to what to watch. Just like BookTubers talk about balancing the time of making videos and reading books and trying to keep up with life in general, a person who doesn't have a channel that is just on here watching videos, their time is also spread thin. They're making the decision, how much do I watch on YouTube today versus wanting to read or getting to read? So their time is just as important, and you have to be cognizant of that as a creator. So those are the cons. So is there some middle ground here? The short answer is yes, there is middle ground. And when it comes to, is BookTube oversaturated, and does that oversaturation mean death? The answer is no. I think as a booktuber, it means you evolve. A great analogy for me, I guess, well, I don't know if it's great. You can be the judge of that. But you're in a crowded bookstore. There's people everywhere. It's absolutely packed. You're trying to make your way through, looking for, some of your favorite books. And you find your shelf. And you get into your kind of anxiety-free zone. The overcrowding, all the people, the noise kind of fades into the background because you are there. You have to remember that as a BookTube creator. What makes you there? Whether it's doing Saturday shorts, whether it's doing book reviews, whether it's, doing book lives or discussions, whatever you're here for, that needs to be your focus. Obviously, you need to remember the mantra of be consistent, not constant. And that is a hard lesson that I learned over the course of the last couple years on BookTube, because I definitely tried to take the mantra of more is better, and that's not always the case when it comes to churning out videos. You also have to focus on the engagement, not the metrics, because the metrics can lie to you. I know a lot of people say, well, numbers never lie. Well, on YouTube, I think the numbers are bots, and I think they're projections. I don't think they're real. You have to focus on who are the people that are always engaged and commenting on your videos, and who are the regulars. Those are the people you need to engage with. Those are the people you have to remember are why you are here. And so when it's all said and done, we go back to the original question. Do you think BookTube is too crowded? Are there too many BookTubers? I want you to drop your comments below. Tell me what your thoughts are. And as always, let me know. I'll talk to you later.